Greetings and welcome to this week's episode of UC Weekly News. I'm your host, David Danto, and I have Tom Arbuthnot on the call with me. Tom, how are things doing in the UK this morning?
Yeah, they're good, thanks. Yeah, the weather's turning here a little bit. It's getting a bit wintry, but exciting times. I'm right around the corner from heading out to Microsoft Ignite, so I'm looking forward to that.
So, as people watch this, you're going to be in the air flying to San Francisco, and we're going to be getting another Ignite. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about what to expect and what's going on. This is to remind everybody, this is the Microsoft event that combined the one primarily for partners and the one primarily for customers together, right? It was Ignite and Inspire, and I forget the other names.
That's right. Yeah. So Spire was more the customer one, more the partner one, and Ignite was more the customer one. Now it's a kind of combined effort. So they're going back to the bigger scale kind of conferences where it will be part end customers and part partner content.
And it's in person, and
Yep.
virtual.
Yep,
Um,
yep, yep. Virtual you get in for free. So they stream all the sessions, the keynote, everything else. So it's very accessible from a virtual point of view. In person, it's a decent investment of a ticket and a flight and stuff, but there's some really good sessions. And it's not just Teams, not just M365, it's the whole Microsoft stack. So
right.
for us who are more interested in Teams and UC, that's only kind of a subset of the wider big Microsoft show,
Yeah.
essentially.
Just like my blog from last week said, we're a teeny weeny insy bitsy but a part of the conference. But it is still interesting to indicate that Microsoft had an in-person conference to go over things, and Cisco had an in-person conference to go over collaboration, as well as all of the Cisco lives that they're doing everywhere else. They had a lot of in-person conferences, and Zoom went all virtual again. And you
Yeah,
can watch the
there's
replay.
something nice about getting together that is I mean for me half of the going is the meetings and the side conversations just like you at the shows. It's not so much the sessions, it's all the catch-ups that are important.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are we expecting to hear from our perspective, from a teams and collaboration perspective, in and out, in between all of the Copilot this and Copilot that sessions that are going on?
Yeah, so there's quite a few team sessions. So Ilya and Kerry are presenting, and they're doing Microsoft Teams, the AI platform for work, and you can tell right already. So even the kind of headline team session is Teams and AI. I think they're going to be landing the kind of you've probably seen it before at things like Enterprise Connect, the secure, smart, simple kind of approach. So a range of features. I know they're going to be talking a lot about kind of places, rooms, events, but AI is the main push of Microsoft at the moment. So even through the rooms conversation, the places, the events conversation, it will be sprinkling AI all throughout those, no doubt.
Well, we are about to, and a month and a half later, I'm going to be going to CES, and we have that big conference. Then a month after that, I'll see you at ISE. We are experiencing what I would consider to be the peak of AI washing, and I've made this joke a million times before, and I'll make it a million times again with apologies. It's a AI toothpaste and AI toilet paper, and AI paint.
I'm hoping we're coming out the other side a little bit now. Certainly with enterprise customers I talk to, they're fully over just saying AI and they're into like show me value, show me adoption, show me business process change. So whether the vendors and have caught up yet with that conversation, certainly in the enterprise, they're a bit over AI for AI's sake now.
Well, it's interesting, and I'll ask you. You probably don't know the answer to this, and I don't know if that Microsoft would reveal it. But when Copilot first came out, and whatever versions ago that was, it was $30 per month per user, and you had to buy it for the entire enterprise, and you had to buy it for the whole year. So we're coming up on that year mark for the people who bought into it. I'm curious what the re-up numbers would be. Has anybody discussed that publicly or privately, or do you have an inkling of how many people that have been using this that are saying, yeah, we're buying a second year versus this really didn't do anything for us?
Yeah, it's Microsoft have been really tricky on the very specific numbers. So I watched the quarterly earnings because that's where we get some of the best numbers. So there's like a number of 150 million people are using AI stuff with Microsoft, and then there are different numbers around the Copilot family, but there's no breakout for the $30 M365 Copilot number. So there's still a lot of adoption push as well around the free included Copilot chat. So there's 440 million plus M365 Office 365 users, but we haven't seen a number that's like 300 million of them are using Copilot, for example. And I think the reality I see on the ground is certainly some customers are very invested in the multi thousands of seats, tens of thousands of seats. But even those customers are very measured in their approach. They're not just blanket licensing. They're seeing if people have value, they're reassigning licenses if people aren't using it. So there's a really big adoption curve to make people habit change beyond the early adopters, and we're still on that journey, I think.
Well, I wouldn't give Microsoft either the kudos or the demerits for, the number fluctuating as people figure this out, but I would be very curious about the percentage. Like of the people who used it over the year, 80% are re-upping or 90% or 10%, is how much of it was we bought into it, but it really wasn't doing a lot for us yet. And that's what I'm really curious about, because you're starting to hear more and more of the word bubble creep into conversations around AI, and certainly from some of the financial people, because most of the money being spent is on the hardware and the server farms and the power. And there aren't a lot of people talking about money coming in because
Yeah.
they're using it. You get some productivity, but the productivity is casual. It's loose. There's no real hard metrics for anybody to use that I've seen anyway.
Yeah, it's lots of like it helps me do this, it helps me do that. One of the really strong adoption cases is meeting summaries. Like everybody seems to get value out of that. That's an easy one for a win. But getting people to do change the way they do business processes, these are agentic stuff, new ways of working,
Mhm.
that doesn't come quite so naturally to a lot of people. So I think there's a long road. And the other thing is the Copilot now is very different to the Copilot 2 years ago. A lot of the promises that were made are only just coming to fruition in terms of, for example, now you can actually engage in the Word document and have Copilot edit it, or engage in the PowerPoint. Previously, it was just a side panel telling you what to do. And we're quite a long way into the journey for those kind of features to be coming out. So I think it's a really valid question to ask. And I'm certainly seeing enterprises not just go, everybody's getting it. It's a very like, okay, we need an adoption program. We need to see the usage. But the other thing that's interesting to me is how there's a free M365 Copilot in the box, which gives you the kind of equivalent of ChatGPT. It's GPT-5. It's not engaged, it like deeply integrated into your entire data set, but you can do a lot there for free. So just keeping people off the consumer products and in the enterprise secure product is a big step for enterprise. I spend a lot of time talking about that. Like, don't worry about the $30 yet. Just make sure people aren't jumping out to consumer,
Yeah.
ChatGPT or consumer Gemini and putting their work documents into those, because as you know well, like there isn't any guarantee around the data there. That's just floating off into the other data centers, which is quite a challenge.
As I know well, let's not go into that story. All right, so let's take this from a software and then a hardware perspective. So from a software perspective, I know we have some new agents in Teams, or some existing agents that are actually going to be talked about. What are you kind of excited about and expecting to see it ignite around the agents that work inside Teams?
Yeah, so we've just recently had channel agents announced into preview. So that's the concept of having a specific agent for each channel. So they're kind of working on what the use cases are for that. So that could be things like a development team working with, they use Jira, for example. They all collaborate in a channel, and that agent is grounded in the channel content, but can also with MCP reach out to other line of business apps. So that's one approach. The other approach is the new kind of revised Copilot in Office can now reach out to all your data, your chat data, your meeting data, and your kind of channel data, either from within Teams or from outside of Teams. So this is something that people kind of expected from the get, was the idea that I could launch Copilot, M365 Copilot to be specific, and it would obviously be able to reach into my chat data, my channel data, my meeting content. But in reality, the back end work has taken quite a lot of time. So that story is only just coming to fruition now. And then kind of beyond that, we're into the facilitator conversation, which spans kind of virtual software meetings and into the room's hardware space. And that's the idea of having a proactive agent in the meeting, taking minutes, putting them into Planner, doing summaries, kind of multiplayer AI.
So if we were in a meeting with facilitator agent talking about how we need to have a subsequent meeting somewhere in Cleveland to look at the color of the paint on the walls, it would then actually be able to schedule that meeting and invite people to it without us asking it to do it.
Yeah, it was. So to be clear, at the moment, it will do like a nice summary of things to do. We haven't yet got to the point of it being clever enough to be go book the meeting for me. That's kind of the next step. And a lot of stuff Ilya's talked about in the past, which I hope we'll get more kind of conversation ignite, is this is the beginning of a journey for a facilitator, particularly in the rooms where it can be intelligent about, are the people in the rooms engaged? Like, is the layout of the room right? Is there a chair blocking the camera? So not just meeting minutes, because that's kind of table stakes for all the UC platforms now. It's how do we make this, agent facilitator, whatever you want to call it, like actually kind of almost like a really good addition to the meeting that's helping with timing, with agenda, with minutes, with summaries, and I hope eventually kind of helping the meeting go along, as in nobody in the room has had any chance to ask a question in the last 20 minutes. Like maybe take a breath, presenter, and let the room engage in the meeting, for example.
So then we've kind of talked about the software. Let's transition to hardware, but let's do software and hardware first. We have some new competition from Microsoft's partners around meeting intelligence. We have the AudioCodes team, and we'll get back to them in a minute. And we have the new Neat Open. Both of those, Neat Open specifically, is the BYOD mode on some of their older bars, but they're able to do meeting summaries and meeting minutes based on the room, based on the device, not specifically based on the end user login. And that's how AudioCodes approaches it with their intelligence as well, where you don't have to pay for the Copilot from Microsoft. You can get the same features room based as opposed to individual based. Do you know what's your feeling about that and what Microsoft's feeling is about that? And it's not direct competition, but I know they're not happy about it.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, isn't it? It depends on the very specific scenario, but like the difference between a device taking meeting minutes is it's going to be for the room for the session, whereas the idea with Copilot is it's everybody and it kind of goes into your graph and has all the data. So I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad idea, but Microsoft have kind of embraced BYOD a bit more now as well, because the reality is there are lots of rooms that are BYOD and always will be. So you can still light up some of the premium features, things like people recognition and voice recognition and minutes and stuff in BYOD scenarios with Teams as well. So I think it's a bit of a horses for courses, but it depends on if you're happy with just the meeting scenario, or like the meeting room scenario, I guess specifically, or every scenario with Copilot.
Well, there are pluses and minuses, as you point out, and there's certainly a cost saving potential there. That if per room as opposed to per user, depending upon the size of the enterprise, that could be a significant difference in cost.
Yeah, I mean, but are you always in a room is kind of the challenge, isn't it? Like that the
Mm.
if you're buying Copilot as well, $30 is up there. You have to be finding more use than just meeting minutes. Like it has to be, I'm also using it Outlook, I'm also using it in Word, I'm also
Mm.
using it to find
Right.
documents. So if you just want meeting minutes, there are quite a few competitive options out there.
Yeah, and then since we were talking about audio code, since I've got a prop, I might as well hold it. This is their RXV Cam 360, which is their center of table device. We've had a number of center of table devices on the market, and in fact, as you're listening to this, I'm probably days away from releasing a history and current status of that under the Talking Points banner, which I'll be sure to share with you, Tom. But interesting thing of what's going on. But interesting thing about this device that they're going to show at Ignite is that you can use it as a standalone. It's got a speaker built into it. So as opposed to I want to get this right, the Logitech site or the
Site.
Neat Center,
Yeah.
which are microphone devices that you can daisy chain across the table now to two and perhaps more in the future. This one you can't daisy chain. This one has a speaker, so you're getting the sound from the room. You can just use this as a USB peripheral. But then, should you want to put in a full-blown MTR in the room using better camera, better base station, everything else, you don't have to throw this away or move it to another room. You can just plug it in and it becomes a peripheral to the system, which is kind of a unique best of both worlds, I'm really impressed with.
Yeah, it's interesting because all the other, as you say, the center of room cameras has typically been accessories to a bar. So you'd have the bar, then you'd have the centers in addition with additional mics and additional cameras. Whereas the audio codes approach is actually you can just run that as its own camera in the center of the room without the
Mhm.
need for a bar as well.
Mhm.
I think more generally that area is super interesting because now Sight have the ability to do two, and I think Neat have the ability to do two as well. So you can have two daisy chained, you can have obviously the front of room as well, but there's a lot coming with the kind of outside in approach. So Huddly have partnered up with Jabra recently, like you got the One Beyond stuff, and I know there's other stuff coming that hasn't been talked about yet. So I think 26 is going to be a really big year for making multi-camera really accessible and really affordable to the point where it's not just the uber expensive rooms that get multi-camera. Actually, with things like cameras running over the network and PoE and those center of room units, we can get some really good multi-camera scenarios going.
And in that paper, I talk about my prior prediction of a few years ago, where we're heading toward, and we're achieving it. We're getting there. This concept of camera arrays, just like we have microphone arrays in the room, and they all decide which is the one that has the best shot. We now have three, four, five, eight, 10 cameras. They don't have to be limited to a center of table device or a wall mounted device. They could be in the bezel of the screen. They could be in the lighting instruments. They could be in the tops of the chairs. It doesn't matter if they have a good view of one person and a quarter view of another person. All of these things will talk to each other and figure out what the best shot is. And we're going to really start to see, and I talk about this, and you never saw a camera on Star Trek on the bridge of the Enterprise. You didn't know where it was because it was all over. It just knew how to get the right shot. It was smart enough to listen, see who's talking, understand the action, and just make the shot. And we're actually really approaching that in a conference room right now with cameras getting smaller and going all over the place. They're eventually going to be so many of them that they're just invisible, and they'll be talking. So this camera array concept is something that I'm looking forward to. But again, you're just starting it with the center tables that you'll see it ignite.
Yeah, I like that as a concept, though. It's really interesting to think about. I think the litmus test for when that's real will be when we've got multi-camera rooms and the system is not trying to arbitrarily get a shot of every camera into the layout. Like, it's okay that there's a center of room camera and actually this shot happens to all be better from the front of room or the back of the room. But the other thing there that's super exciting for me is all the OEMs are using their own AI and algorithms. So we get some real competition between the OEMs in who has actually got the best shot
Mm.
detection, AI transitions, which is nice. And it's really practical to do that at the edge because we're talking multiple, up to sort of 10, 11, 4K cameras. So yes, theoretically you can send some of that cloud to the cloud and do some kind of shots in the cloud. But I think there's always going to be a case for edge-based processing to make the decisions and pick the right feeds.
And how nice Neat's camera was in that it can hang or it can sit on the table, but you also don't need to mount a camera in the back of the room to shoot the presenter, that it can do the presenter.
Yeah, the presenter mode's really cool on that, where you can kind of hang one just to the left of the podium and it gets a great shot of the presenter while you've got the room shot as well. That's a really
Yeah.
interesting use case. I love
Yeah.
the idea of the kind of pendant mode.
And you even get the presenter shot right from the center of table camera if you have it on the table close enough to the front of the room.
Yeah.
So we've passed some kudos on to Neat. We've passed some kudos on to AudioCodes. Let's not leave Logitech out. Their latest announcement, well, the latest announcement was headsets. But prior to that, their latest announcement is that they've expanded this Express Install with Microsoft, that they now have more furniture manufacturers and more of their devices on. So this idea that you can get a room installed and set up in minutes, not even hours, is really what they're pushing. The ease of the capability of getting these things going.
Yeah, Microsoft really want to see that, and I'm seeing it from customers too. We've hit a weird tipping point where the kit has got more affordable, and now the install is more than the kit. So actually being able to wheel things in on trolleys or have all-in-ones or do a quick, push against the wall kind of mount scenario, suddenly you can drop ship that stuff. You don't need super clever hands to install it. And for things like we've got a Regis office or we're not sure where we want them on which floor, you can you're not making a massive commitment to wire in a room. You just need a plug and network and off you go.
Okay. So while you're on, I guess there's an expo floor. They're exhibitors,
Yep,
so that's
there
the
is,
expo floor.
there is.
While you're there, I'm trying to get you and my buddy Neil together, and maybe you guys can do a drop-in shot for me so we can tell everybody if there's any surprises that
Yeah, I'm
we
sure we can do that.
didn't
I'm
know
doing lots
about
of filming on the floor.
when we're there.
I've got a session with Ilya doing a real catch up on what's going on. Kerry's going to join the Teams Fireside chat. So that'll be morning over there, afternoon in Europe. And I've got a few videos with some of the vendors as well. So I'm sure I can find some time with Neil to give you a bit of a snapshot of what's
Oh,
going on.
so, and I hear he has a camera or two every once in a while. But
He does like to bring out his flash gear, so we can use that.
you think right now? So I'll count on here in the U.S. That'll be Thanksgiving week. That we'll run some clips from the show that you guys can send in, and maybe I can even find him at a point in time, or you guys to pick up a phone and just have a quick chat with you later on this week as people are watching it. But any other closing thoughts from you? I know I'm going to see you in Barcelona in February. What's going on
Yeah,
between now and then?
I'm really excited. Like, Ignite's a big deal for me because obviously it's all the Microsoft news, but actually ISE already we're getting some good news from different OEMs about their portfolios for next year, and ISE really has become an absolute staple of the kind of combined UC, Rooms, AV, everything show. So all the OEMs are there, all the partners are there. So that's a real highlight of the year for me. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, in the meantime, Ignite will kind of give us all the platform news, and then I think ISE early next year gives us all the kind of hardware and rooms news.
And we have the holidays between the two.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, thankfully, because we need it.
And quick plug, Talking Points will be doing our pick hits again at ISE. So we're going to be looking around for the top 10 or so, a little more, a little less, not really sure, exhibitors at the show that we feel have a story that should rise above the noise floor. And Lord knows the Fura has a noise floor.
Indeed.
You walk in there, what are there, 8 halls, 12 halls? I've forgotten, and everything can get lost if you don't have somebody. So we'll talk about beforehand what we think we'll be seeing, and then from the show, Dave Michaels and I will be covering it, and I'll probably have a week of eating chicken nuggets again because it's uh, it's one of the safest things that I can eat in Barcelona instead of tapas.
Yeah, so it's certainly lots of options out there, but you got to make your choices.
Yes, absolutely. Although I wouldn't recommend anybody eating anything on the show floor, but that's another story. Tom, thanks very much for spending time with us. How can people stay in touch with you? And I know you have a free newsletter that you send out. Give people some information around that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, a few things going on. So I co-run a community around Microsoft 365. It's empowering.cloud. So there's about 10,000, a little over people engaged there on various things. We have a podcast, we have a newsletter. LinkedIn is always a good thing as well. So next week, or as this goes out this week, I guess for Ignite, I'll be posting various videos and interviews from the show live on LinkedIn. But it all starts with empowering.cloud. So that's the place to get started.
Terrific. This time, can you keep this RXV cam here? It's really I can lean on it. It's kind of cool.
We should work it into the shot so we can have a 360 while we're recording
Absolutely.
next time.
I'll have to. I have like nine
It's
cameras in front
it,
of me, so
it,
this will have to be a 10th one.
it's BYOD. You can work it straight
Yeah,
in. It's fine.
exactly. Awesome. Tom, thanks very much for joining me, and thank you for watching as you do every week. We really do appreciate it. We will see you on next week's show. Take care.